Yo, what is up, Kings? I've been meaning to talk about this for a while. We are going to go away from the politics a little bit. Politics are always very heated, and politics is something, I mean, this is the case with a lot of things, but it's something that a lot of people are very tribal about. The number one thing is not always the truth for them. And if they find one thing that they disagree with, or maybe due to the point in life that they're at, they can't quite see, whether it be ignorance or a willing ability to just not follow the truth. Whatever the case may be. But I've been doing political videos recently because it's the political season. And as I said in the most recent video I made, I'm not going to sugarcoat what I think. And I know that I'm not alone in some of the sentiments that I've shared. And so it is what it is. So there is something that all young men go through, in particular, young men who are handsome in their young man years, that I think is worthy of discussion. And so I'll just explain my own anecdotal experience. And I know it may perhaps come off as conceited, but I promise you it's not. It is mostly as a cautionary, informative tale of what men go through, the life cycle that men go through. So most people go to public high schools. Even if you didn't go to a public high school and you went to a private school, a lot of modern private schools are co-ed. And school, in particular high school, but I would say school across the board, but I'm mainly talking about the high school to young, adult transition, is a very orchestrated, artificial system. When I tried to make this video before, I continuously was looking for a certain word, and artificial is the word. It's manipulated. It's similar in some aspects to real life, but not totally and completely. And again, it is a totally manufactured little society. And of course, young men and young women are able, especially young women, are able to act in ways that they otherwise would not, specifically as adults, namely because, by and large, in theory, it's how it's supposed to be, they have parents that still shelter them, they still feed them, they still clothe them. In other words, they're there for their survival. They're there to continuously be that backdrop towards their children's survival. So I bring that up to say that how young women go about their proclivities in high school is different than what it ends up being as adults, okay? In high school, and this was my experience as somebody who played varsity sports, who was very much a jock. Now, I wasn't a jock in the sense of like, what's up, bro? You know, the stereotypical, you know, gym bra. But, you know, I've always been somebody who tries to, anybody that's good to me, I'm good to them. I don't care if they're popular or liked across the board. If they treat me well, I'm going to give them a chance. I've always thought that I've been a fair young man and now man, and that is why my whole life I've had a variety of friend groups, not just one particular friend group, you know, because in high school there's cliques and things like that. And for me, I always had a variety of different friend groups. This was also in parcel because I played water polo, which was a certain group of kids that played water polo. Usually it was more like nerdy kids that were trying to bolster their resume. Now, don't get me wrong, there were some athletes that played water polo, but you're not going to large and parcel get the same people that you would get who go for football or go for basketball. And then, of course, I played basketball, played baseball. So I knew a lot of the guys around school. And then I knew older guys playing varsity as a freshman. And because of that, I also knew older girls. So I say all of that to say that school is very much manufactured, it's orchestrated, it's artificial. And again, the dynamics are not going to be totally the same. But in all honesty, I think for young men to men, it's virtually the same across the board, because men, whether they're younger or older, care about beauty. They care about, specifically a woman's beauty. And women, if you look at their dynamics, and you can even see this when they go to college as well. And again, I'm also speaking from anecdotal experience here. Due to there being a backdrop, a security blanket of protection, of provisioning by a young woman's parents, if they are so inclined with birth control, and they have a mom who says, "Oh, I'm okay, honey, if you have sex, just let me know and be sure," because believe me, I met a lot of moms like that. Just let me know, because they want to vicariously live through their daughter. If they have parents like that and they have access to birth control, which most young women do, they can, in other words, have their feminine wiles, for lack of a better term, run rampant. And the worst parts of hypergamy and women's natural base desires come on full display when they are in high school, and I would say that this even carries over to college. Because again, you have that built-in protection unit. Whereas before, in previous civilizations, that would not be the case. You would still live in your tribe or with your parents, but you still very much had external threats that you were dealing with. And it was just different circumstances. Nonetheless, nowadays, that does not exist. And there's other things that have been added into the mix through birth control and things like that. And so the reason why I say that is that young men, especially young men who maybe are man-childs or grow up fast physically, they're athletic. I would say that this is the case across the board, but it's really the case if you're an attractive young man. When you go to school and you're in high school, you have all this access to girls your age, and what is present and what is available is not reality, because you live in an artificial environment. You are existing inside an artificial environment. And so, I just remember, like, for example, and I just, this, everybody knows that this is true. You're a young man on a Friday night, you're literally trying to figure out, okay, have we talked to this girl before? Okay, let's get her. Which girls can we get to hang out with? You're literally trying to fill up your deck with endless possibilities, and you really do have endless possibilities. And of course, it's not endless, because you're stuck to the confines of who attends your school and things like that. But what happens is, and again, especially if you're a handsome young man that receives the positive attention from a young woman's base desires. When you reach adulthood as a young man, you're 18, 19, 20 years old, you are entering into a different environment. Whereas women, they're entering into a different environment, but they still have a lot of the same protection, and they still, no matter what, are receiving the same attention that they always received, if not more so. Whereas men, you literally have them going, in some circumstances, from here, where they are literally getting all the girls they could ever want, to, and being at the top of this artificial food chain, to being all the way at the bottom because they don't make any money. They're not as refined as a man, as a person, as a human being. And they literally, in the snap of a finger, in the turning of 18, in the graduating, they literally drop immediately down to the bottom of the hill. And I remember I had a girlfriend that was a year older than I was. When I was in high school, I dated multiple girls that were older than me. One girl in particular was 3 years older than me. And at the time, she was actually with a guy that was 1 year older than her. But of course, what happened with that particular situation is I had become the popular, dominant basketball player, and he was now graduated, and he had gone immediately to the bottom of the food chain while I was still on top of it in my artificial environment. And it is a stark decline. And this is really difficult for young men to come to terms with, because in previous societies, men would be able to gradually come into manhood, and they would, in a lot of regards, be able to start earning money at a younger age, start contributing to the family lifestyle, and start building a trade of their own, and really start converging on their life path. And even if they didn't have all the resources that they were going to end up having, they would have, you know, a familial connection that would essentially grant him a wife, and they would grow together. So you have this extreme imbalance, and this is what modern women don't understand. There is an extreme imbalance that currently exists in the modern dating place, and it's in a variety of ways, okay? But this is a perfect example of the imbalance that currently exists, because for women, regardless of the artificial environment, the only reason why that is relevant to the story is to say that women are able to act out their base desires in an artificial system while they still have the security and safety of their parents, okay? And so part of the reason why this immediately this imbalance happens is because when women get into adulthood and become women, they start looking for other things, but they still might have some of the same protection that they once had, but they start looking at things in a different way. And so what I was saying earlier is I had a girlfriend that was a year older than me, and we were both going to college. I was doing my thing. I was still doing really well for myself as a young man. I was doing better than most young men my age were doing. I would say easily over 75%. But it's still in the balance of situations and what she was now looking for, and the transition she was now looking for, the transition her mind had made, it was not enough. Now, of course, and maybe I'll tell this story a different time, you know, I was going through other things myself and personal things. I feel fucking lame even mentioning it. I made a video in the past. The only thing that I have to speak on that past relationship is that if you, as a man, you need to be ready to come across a girl that you cannot pass on. Now, a lot of guys end up simping and pedestalizing and thinking that they have a 1 in a million gal when they don't. But for example, the girl that I'm talking about, when we first started dating, was a virgin. She was a Catholic. She was a soft-spoken, well-mannered girl, and I was not up to the task, okay? Regardless of the imbalance. But perhaps I'll tell that story a different time. But nonetheless, that is an example of how she comes into adulthood and she is now elevated to the top of the food chain because she's a young, attractive woman with a low body count. Because even back then, before I was red-pilled, I would never date a girl who had a massive body count. And even back then, if it was over like 2 or 3, I'd say, nope, recreational use only. And then the young man, as soon as he enters adulthood, he immediately goes to the bottom. And so this is an extremely difficult situation for a lot of young men to go through because they have no way of understanding how the fuck this happened and what even happened. Some men, unfortunately, are not intelligent enough to think through it and realize what just happened to them. Now, I'm an intelligent man. However, even I knew what was going on. I just struggled to articulate and put names to what exactly was going on around me. And that is how the red pill has been very beneficial because it puts a name to all of this. And so a young woman that enters into young womanhood from high school now is open to an even bigger population. She's now at the top of the food chain and her hypergamy is at an all-time high. Whereas conversely, a man is all the way at the bottom. And this is why when I see women saying that it's gross that older men are with younger women, hence the word women, that it's ick. The bottom line is women have created that system. Modern women have created that system because a majority of modern women are not willing to stand by a young man who is building his kingdom, building his world around him. She would much rather do the quick thing, because women tend to be lazy, do the quick and easy thing, which is to drop this loser and get with the hero, who's already got everything all made. That's why you have the saying, women hang out at the finish line and they pick all the winners. And it's very true. It is very true. So I tell this story and discuss this for 2 main points. For the women, it is to consider the immense imbalance of power that they have and try to be more thoughtful about how they go about the process and really, really ask themselves if the guy that they're with, maybe he isn't what he is, what you need him to be now, but does he have it within him to become what you want him to be in the future? Because women are interested in a man's future, men are interested in women's past. And women will choose men who are already tailor-made, or they pick men that are on the rise that will be there. But the latter is not as often. So I would just continue to urge women to consider that and think about that, because I promise you the grass is not always greener. And the sad reality is that baked into this cake is feminism. And what feminism causes these women who enter into the height of their sexuality as young women, it causes them to think that they can always do better, think that the grass is always greener, have incredibly high standards, oftentimes higher than they should be for what they offer as a woman. And it causes their hypergamy to go out of control. And before they know it, they're 29 years old. They've been working a bullshit job. They're baby hungry. They want babies. But of course, their sexual marketplace value is not nowhere near what it used to be. And now they're fucked. They still might be attractive, but they still won't be able to get the same high value guy that they once would. Now, is that a one size fits all? No, because I'm going to do a separate video showing Donald Trump Jr. and Eric Trump, who are with two women that are older than they are. Okay. There are some dorky, dumb ass men who don't realize their worth and they choose used up women, which is a massive mistake. The second thing, and this is the last thing, is for men, what I would highly urge men, considering all of this, is as follows. It is what it is. It sucks. But in the long run, you need to just realize it, move forward, work your ass off, and in the end, it will be worth it. Because if you put your head down, if you are disciplined and put in the work and get yourself to where you need to be, you will have the pick of the litter. And those same women that passed on you 5 years ago are now either married and fat, or they're not married and they're childless and they're fat. Because women do have a clock. That with great power comes great responsibility. They have this great power, this short, but it's very short. They have this immense amount of power, but it's very short-lived. Whereas men, it's much more gradual and it's much more sustainable. So men need to realize that and maybe not spend, and that's the one thing that I wish that I had done. I wish that I had not spent so much time trying to be validated through getting women, because I was so used to getting girls like I was in high school and in college. I wish I had not spent so much fucking time trying to get validated through girls and trying to realize and go through all the millions of, well, why did I use it and I'm not now? That doesn't make sense. I mean, I know now why, but had I not given a fuck and just put my head down and improved and gotten better, it would have all taken care of itself. Now, I eventually got on the right track, of course. I'm doing just fine. But it could have been done quicker. And I wish I had come across a video like this sooner. Because it will pay dividends. It will pay dividends if you're able to have that discipline and put your head down. And if you, when all is said and done, and you still don't care about getting laid and having tons of girlfriends and shit like that, so be it. That's your call. In fact, as a Christian man, I think that's probably the best route. But you'll have that choice. You'll have that choice. So it's a very interesting dynamic that we have in modern society. I'm going to end it here. Maybe I'll talk more about it and do a part 2. Hope you guys enjoyed this car ride rant. Like, comment, share, subscribe. And last but not least, DBAP, don't be a pussy will. Facts are feelings, because your feelings don't matter. Love you, kings. Christ is king. Peace.